therefore creates that into notes of music. Now, the interesting part about the device is that the device was developed here in Damanhur. We've been working with this since the 1970s.
Okay. So I have a ton of questions. I wrote a bunch, and now I'm gonna have to ask several on what you just said.
I have this very unusual kind of right brain, left brain thing that tends to happen, which is I'm very kind of practical and engineer, logical in those ways.
The root cause of so many people's problems, which is what you just said, is you live in LA.
Exactly.
Let's
Or you
just
live in
do
your
some
car,
math.
which happens to be in LA.
Hello and welcome to this episode of the Game Changer Podcast. My name is Michelle Dutro. I am your host, and I am genuinely excited for my guest today. First of all, there should be a hint because there's a couple of plants behind me, which I normally do not have right here. One is going to just fall right off the couch at any point in time. If it does, I'll save it. But the reason for this is, yes, my guest today is Tigrilla Gardenia, a nature-inspired mentor. And let me tell you, when I give you the whole bio and we get into what she does for a living, that's no exaggeration. Certified life coach and world ambassador for plant advocacy who empowers creative, multi-potentialities and nature-inspired professionals to live authentic, purpose-driven lives in partnership with the plant world. With more than 25 years of experience spanning the arts, technology, communication, and eco-social innovation, Tigrilla bridges science and spirituality in remarkable ways. She draws on plant neurobiology, ecosystem thinking, biomimicry, and esoteric teachings to help people release limiting beliefs, nurture their passions, and create lives rooted in flow and connection. Here we go. I'm going to start my Italian practice here. Yeah. Tigrilla's journey began with a life-changing encounter with a musical plant. We're going to start there, so just understand. I'm going to ask about that one right away, which set her on a path to study some of the greatest minds in bio-inspired sciences, earning a master's degree in, all right, Tigrilla, get ready for this, Futuro Vegetale under Stefano Mancuso at the University of Florence. How was I?
You did great.
Nailed it. I've been practicing for a week. Today, she shares her wisdom globally as the host of the Reconnect with Plant Wisdom podcast and as founder of the Naturally Conscious Community, an online ecosystem where alternative thinkers and creatives evolve together with nature as their guide. In our conversation today, we'll explore how plants act as collaborators in human growth, what they can teach us about creativity, community, and purpose, and how rethinking our relationship with nature can help us reconnect with our own true essence. Tigrilla, did I leave anything out? Is there anything that I need to know or the audience needs to know about you before we get started?
I have a feeling it's all just going to spill out as we start talking.
Beautiful. I love it. Okay, well, we are going to start with the thing that jumped out at this from your bio minute 1 weeks ago when you crossed my path, and that is this musical plant that changed everything. All right, give us the background. First of all, I didn't even know there was such a thing as a musical plant. So first explain that, and then how you happened across it, and then where you were in life then, because for us to know that there was a change, we need to know where you were to know where that kind of redirected you. So the floor is yours.
All right. Woof. That's a big floor. I'm like, hold on, let me figure out where do I start. So I'll give a very, very condensed sort of background, then we can backtrack and get back into that if there's any of the things that come out from there. So basically, I have, as you already noticed, a very wide and strange background. I start in like the world. You have to understand that my base is I'm a music engineer and an electrical engineer. That was what I studied in college. It's like the foundation, and it's an important foundation. So that's why I always state it. It's because it fits into where we're going to get to with the musical plant. So my career trajectory has taken me through, I worked in technology with audio and video online, and then moved over to Microsoft, worked in some of things like, Windows and other platforms of that nature. And then I left there because I had been in the arts before, remember, music engineer. So I have a degree in music. And I wanted to get back into that. And I started producing large events. I got into circus arts, eventually co-owned a circus even, and basically left the United States on a tour with Cirque du Soleil. So I literally ran away with the circus. But when I came off tour, I decided I wanted to stay in Europe because I was in Europe, and I settled. In the meantime, as I was doing these things, I was also teaching esoteric topics such as Kabbalah and sacred geometry and astral travel and things of this nature. So I have this very unusual kind of right brain, left brain thing that tends to happen, which is I'm very kind of practical and engineer, logical in those ways. And at the same time, music has always been, and the arts has always been an extremely important like avenue for me. And I have this whole esoteric spirituality side that all kind of mesh together. And so when I left tour, I decided to, after traveling around Europe for a while, I settled in Barcelona and I was teaching mostly. So I was doing more esoteric type teaching there. And a friend of mine came to visit, and she and I had mutual connections in this whole like spiritual world. And we decide, hey, why don't we? She was on her way to Italy. So we're like, let's go to Italy and go and visit this place, Damanhur. We had both heard about it. Damanhur is very, very well known for it's not very well known. It's not very well known for anything, but what it's known for, and now it's very well known. Back then, nobody knew what the heck we were talking about. It's known for its underground temples of humankind, which are often called like the eighth wonder of the world or the first wonder of the new world. Amazing temples that we carved out of the mountain. Plus, it's an entire esoteric society, kind of just what would it be like if you took Hogwarts and Oz and connected them together? Like that's kind of what it's like to live here. So we come here for a weekend. I get to know some people. Um, Synchronicity has a way of taking control when you're here. And so when I got back to Barcelona, after meeting certain people here, I was asked if I would come and I would spend 6 months like working on a project. And so I had to move anyway. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go 6 months and then I'll come back to Barcelona. I'm super happy there. I love living in Barcelona. I wasn't planning on moving at all. I thought I had found my Europe home. And I come here for 6 months, and well, really, it's been 15 years and I'm still here. So that tells you something about like how this, this became home. I was like, it was so clear after month 3 that I was like, okay, I guess I'm staying. Like this is home, type of thing.
Wow.
It's that whole Hogwarts Oz thing. It really just captures you. Anyway, so so that's where I am at this point. I'm completely redoing my life again, and I am, working with the Federation, like working with the community, helping out on some projects that were more technological, going back to my roots of tech. And so I was doing mostly tech stuff, and I hear this music as I'm walking down one of our areas, in our historic capital, and I hear this music. And music to me is everything. Like music is the way I understand the world. Music has always been a constant in my life. Hence why I ended up studying it. And so I follow this music, and I end up at a speaker that's connected to a box that's connected to a plant. Speaker. I get box, obviously getting signals from somewhere. Plant? And so I'm just like, and then I'm listening to this music and I'm looking at this plant and I'm like, are you talking to me? When you kind of instantly understand something or
Huh. Right.
somebody's talking and maybe somebody else goes, I don't understand what the hell you're saying. And you're like, you're making perfect sense to me.
Right.
It was kind of like that. Like all of a sudden it was like this awakening of this plant is alive. This plant is obviously conscious. This plant is communicating with me through this music. And that's when I discovered the music of the plants and had my plant reawakening all at the same time. So basically the music of the plants which of course my little engineer mind said, how is this plant making music with this box? Like now I went into full
Right. You
little,
got my attention. Yeah. Yeah.
you got my attention. You've already got my attention here on the like more spiritual side, but now my engineering side's like, what the heck is this? So after it became my passion, obviously, as you can tell. And so basically the music of the plants is very simple in so ways. It's a device that is a musical instrument for plants. So plants have electrical signals just the same as we as humans do, right? Our synapses fire. Plants have what some would argue in the world of plant neurobiology. Human consciousness people don't like this because they don't want anything that doesn't have a brain to be smart, but that's another story for another day. And so basically, they have also electrical currents and synapse-like factions. And so this device takes the difference, the impedance between the leaf system and the roots, the leaf and the root systems, and therefore creates that into notes of music. Now, the interesting part about the device is that the device was developed here in Damanhur. We've been working with this since the 1970s, actually. And what I find really fascinating is that when the device was first created, the idea was one-way conversation. I can get into the mind of what the plant is doing, right? I'm observing and I'm trying to understand what plants are doing. It's late 1970s, going into the 1980s, lots of feverish experimentation here with all kinds of different topics, from the paranormal to what does it mean to live in community and not kill somebody, which is what I thought I would do. And so we end up kind of discovering that when people, because musicians, if they hear music, they want to play along. So musicians would start to play along with the plant, and lo and behold, the plant would change the music.
Mm-hmm.
So we realized, oh my goodness, this isn't one way. This is two way. Like the plant is literally, at the time we didn't know how. Today, science has caught up. And so from about 2006 to now, there's been a feverish sort of study on plants on a completely different level with the birth of plant neurobiology, with plant signaling and behavior. And we kind of understand that plants, oh, they do have the same five senses we do, plus a whole set of other senses. Plants can hear. They literally hear what's going on. They also have other ways of understanding things. And so therefore can modulate the signal that they send to the device to be in harmony with the human that is playing along as well. So you have the ability for a plant to communicate using a musicality, which we tend to think that that music is a language. It's kind of this thing that we always say, but it's really the opposite. Language is a musicality. It's all about rhythm, tone, melody. That is the way that we learn music. We learn it by the sing-song nature that it has. And it's really because everything, the underlying communication mechanism is that musicality. And so the plants are able to use that to express themselves and to share with us. And in addition to all the other ways that they already communicate with us, because we already know that we feel better in nature, we're more altruistic, we have all kinds of different, it's our healing, it's where most of our medicine comes from. So there's all that like stuff that we kind of know, but we've never put together as like, oh, wait a minute, the plants are purposely doing this for us. And that just opened for me a massive rabbit hole of, I need to know more.
Okay. So I have a ton of questions. A ton. I wrote a bunch, and now I'm gonna have to ask several on what you just said. So some things come to mind. Lynn McTaggart, who wrote The Field, and a bunch of other, The Intention Experiment and whatnot, and Rupert Sheldrake did a whole lot of other studies as well
Mhm.
around animals, plants, all kinds of things. So certainly not new to me,
Mm-mm.
but you've taken this a lot further than certainly the knowledge I have, which is why I have some questions to ask you. I know Masaru Emoto did the book on messages in water,
Water.
so all sorts of advancement in technology and science in understanding, not just our place in the world, but our place in how we interact with our world. And so when people say, hey, it matters talking to the plants, since you are the expert in this, I would assume that it matters on not just talking to the plant, but let's just take a look at someone's home and the
Right.
energy that a home has, right? We know that children feel it immediately, pets feel it immediately. I've always believed that plants do as well. So
Yeah.
it's always just slightly concerning to me when someone says, I don't have a green thumb. Nothing I have ever lives. And it's more than just water and sunlight, right? I mean, energy is felt. And so
Absolutely.
I know this is the work that you are very deeply rooted in. If somebody, which I would imagine a great deal of people are listening thinking, wow, these two girls are crazy. So if someone's just starting out, what would you say are some key things to understand and why it matters about
Yeah.
our relationship with the plant world? Why does it, to someone who this is first time they've heard of anything even remotely like this, why does this matter or why should it matter?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it matters on a whole set of different levels. So I'm going to go from like baby beginner or the what's in it for me to the bigger question that you sort of started to touch on when you were talking about about the energy and all these different pieces. So let's just talk about that. What's in it for me? At a base level, scientific studies show us that we are happier when we're in connection with nature. So that is where forest bathing comes from, Shirin-yoku, which is, the Japanese forest bathing, which is why there are so many studies that talk about awe and wonder in nature and how that triggers. Just 20 minutes in nature will will drop our cortisol levels by 50%. So our stress comes down. There was a very important study done in the 1970s that talked about people who had just had surgery and were in the ICU. And if they had a window in the ICU that led to a scene with a tree or some kind of nature, they were proven to actually heal faster. And also in cities, if you have any kind of nature patch, so like even an abandoned yard, like an abandoned lot that gets left and it starts to grow green, because that's how, plants are, they're going to take over anything that they can, that those people who live within visual distance of that actually respond with lower levels of depression and of other kinds of mental kind of challenges in those ways. So there is already our mental health is very closely tied to plants in general. So that's one piece. So that's like the basic part. As you start going deeper into this, there's the fascination and awe of, oh my goodness, these plants are actually sentient beings. They have decision-making capabilities, which means as models, I can learn a lot from plants because plants can't run away. And we as humans have these two beautiful legs that we think are this wonderful thing, but it doesn't matter. Our MO has become run away from your problems. So plants give us really fantastic models that we can use to better understand what does it mean to create an ecosystem? What are the different relationships that we can create? There's much more than just, I love you, I hate you, you're my parent, you're my child, you're my this, you're my that. There's lots of others, commensalisms, and what does it really mean to be a parasite or a predator? Where can that be good? So there's lots of models plants can offer us as we start to connect. So that's another level where we can see ecosystem dynamics and what it really means to create community and how do you deal with your problems without running away and those types of things. Then you go a level even higher than that, which is, oh my goodness, I am a being of nature and there is some plantness in me. In other words, I evolved through plants, right? They are the older species. 470 to 500,000, 500 million years ago, 200,000 years ago. I am a baby. And these beings have seen us grow up. They know everything about us. They have seen us as we learned to take our first steps. They saw us as we understood fire. They got to know us as we went from hunter-gatherers to all kinds of other societies. They hold the history of the world in their, green leaves. And I can access that. Not only that, I have a plantness in me because, again, I evolved through this, which means inside of me, there's a stillness and a presence. There's an ability for me to understand my environment. I probably have all those other senses, right? We know of the 5, but if plants have about 15 other ones, don't I? Wouldn't it be possible? If plants have an aura and I have an aura, what can I learn from them? If plants have to deal with things that I put into the shadows or I form into limiting beliefs, maybe plants can actually help me understand this with new terminology. I often say that to best understand your humanness, sometimes it's great to be able to step out of it, even out of your animalness, because we even forget we're animals, which is that instinctual, active movement part of ourselves, and step in it through our plantness, through stillness, through constant awareness, through consciousness at 360 degrees. And then and with a logic that's so outside of our conditioning, all outside of everything that we know is right or wrong, because in an ecosystem it's so different. And then once I kind of like step out of my humanness and I experience the world in this way, I can then come back into my humanness without all those blinders on. And now I can start to really understand what the world is like from my lived experience with the past, knowing I'm going into the future, but grounded into the present.
Okay, stop right there because I'm going to forget these two questions and they're tagged completely under what you just said. And I'm sure I'm not the only one who's curious about this. Two things that you have gained from your plant experience, world, living life that you would not have had otherwise. You don't maybe you would have eventually, right, in the thing of fate and destiny, but the fact is that you know for sure one life lesson that has really benefited you, that has helped you in life tremendously, that you can pinpoint to say, because of this work, this is what I know. Conversely, one limiting belief that you learned about yourself that you also gained from your time in the ecosystem and seeing how things are. And we can't run, or, plants don't have the ability to numb themselves. They don't drink vodka, to my knowledge. So they just have to deal, right? So both sides of the equation, both something you've gained and an observation of a limiting belief that you, from sitting in observation, said, I see this in myself that I might not have seen without this work. What are those two?
I'm so excited about this. Okay. First one is everything in an ecosystem is useful. In other words, there are no things to throw away, no characteristics, no anything that I do. All of this talk that we keep explaining to ourselves as human beings, where we keep saying, oh, you've got to let go of that, or you have to get rid of that part of yourself, or that's a trait that's bad. That's not something you should be. For example, I am an extremely critical person. It has burned me when I was young. I tend to be very detail oriented. I see the problems and the flaws in something. And for a long time, it was my Achilles heel. I would cry. I have lost jobs. I have had all kinds of situations because I couldn't really see the big picture. I would always look at the details that were missing. So I kept trying for 30 years to get rid of this, to delete this part of myself, until one day I was in the woods sitting with a tree and a plant, and having a conversation with a plant. And I was realizing, and this plant and I were chatting about the fact that in an ecosystem, everything can be used for somebody. It's useful. There's no garbage can. There's no getting rid of things. Sure, you can compost some stuff, but that takes a long time. And that's still food for somebody else. And I was basically, over the last few years, understanding the fact that that critical part of me, the problem wasn't the critical. The critical can be constructive and it can be destructive. I just never learned how to use it. So when I started to work and say, from now on, I'm not going to try to get rid of the fact that I'm critical. I want to understand it. I can now strategically destroy something, because some things need to be destroyed, like that plan doesn't work. Or I can actually use it to better things. It's about the dose, it's about the duration, and it's about the direction that you use something. And without the plants helping me see that all these years that I had spent trying to get rid of things was useless, I would have never been able to understand that I have so many powers, and that everything that I keep putting in the shadows, I need to just put back and realize that that's the destructive side of a constructive thing, and that both of them are important.
Hmm. Okay. And I love that because, even though you're not here in the United States, I know you know it very well, based on social media
Oh,
and television and magazines and everything else. We're never good enough. There's
yep,
always things that are wrong. And we're
always.
always comparing ourselves to whatever it is. And I would imagine in plant world, a tree is happy being a tree, and a tree doesn't want to be a bush. And a bush is happy being a bush, and a bush doesn't want to be a tree. And a bush isn't comparing itself to a tree. And so being happy with what and who we are in all the ways, I think is a really unique and fantastic observation, and a very accurate one,
Mhm.
quite honestly.
Absolutely. And also the fact that, you know, bushes have a series of characteristics, and they can be attacking the tree in one day and they could be best pals in another. And it all depends on what that relationship looks like based on what's happening in the overall ecosystem. So it's also that understanding of, I am an individual, but I'm also interrelated, and I can't actually separate myself from either one of those two. I'm always both. So even as I'm an individual and I live in community, so like I said, I haven't killed anybody yet, so something I'm doing right, because I'm always an individual who's also working with a group. And that could be a group of humans, it could be a group of my own personalities, it could be a group of a set of companies, it could be any kind, but I'm always, everything that I am is me and everybody at the same time. And plants really help us embody that, because you see 7 of the same species near each other, and yet they're all so different. And you're like, why are you like tall and why are you crooked? And it's not genetics, because they all have the same genetics. So that's why I said it sometimes helps us get out of our humanness and realize, oh my goodness, all of this that I am is natural. It's just that I've been conditioned to think that something is wrong with me. And it's like, what if I just assume that all of this is normal, natural, even when my multi-potentialite mind has 1,000 passions and 1,000 things, or my neurodivergence. But if all of that is natural, how do I use it? Where do I use it? Like that, it just changes the questions.
So someone's listening right now and they're thinking, all right, let's just go back. She said she was sitting in a forest talking to a plant, communicating with a plant. And that's where all this came from. And someone's, we all have that initial instant skepticism. And then it's followed with, well, maybe. So someone is sitting here listening right now and says, okay, well, funny enough, I'm headed to a park, or maybe they're listening on earbuds and they're walking through a park right now, or they're planning on taking a hike this weekend. So as just an initial directive, someone is this is talking to trees, plants, or anything else is not part of their typical nature or a typical part of their day, but they're saying, you know what? I'm going to give it a shot. I heard that podcast and I don't know what I can gain, but I'm going to try. What would some just kind of baseline instructions be to say, you know what, in your afternoon, you're out in nature, try this?
Yeah. So the best way and the easiest way for me is to start with the senses. We have these things in common, right? We as humans rely heavily on our sense of sight. This is the reason why most other species don't pass the human consciousness test, because the human consciousness test is based on the idea, it's biased to sight. If I can't recognize myself in the mirror, then I must not be conscious. But a dog doesn't see the same way we do. They do smell much better than we do, which means they can recognize the difference between themselves and somebody else through scent. So sometimes it's good to like get rid of the eyes and the vision, because that clouds the way we look at things. And so if you're just even at home with a house plant, or if you're walking, like you said, in a park, stop, come near whatever plant, whether that's I want to lie on the grass, or I want to stand in front of a beautiful tree, or I want to sit like I'm looking at Jaina the aloe and I want to just sit with whatever plant I have, a spider plant or, a Dracaena at home. And I just want to first sit close enough that I'm kind of there, like I know and I can sense the plant physically, and close my eyes. And first just start with your breath. Breath is life all around. And where does the oxygen we breathe come from? The plants. Not only that, most plants are giving off a series of volatile organic chemicals. So if you're not so like in believing of the energetic connection, just believe the science. There's a series of chemicals of volatile organic compounds that are being released. Terpenes, they're all those scents that we love, like the smell of cut grass, the pine scent in the air, all those things. Breathe that in with the oxygen. And as you breathe out, imagine that you're giving that to this plant, because what do they take in? Carbon dioxide. So starting that cycle alone is a really great way of like sensing that presence. And then you can slowly, so you start with the sense of smell, which is also the sense of breath, which is life in so many different traditions. And then you can start to bring online some of the other senses, like touch. Not with your eyes where but just reach out. What do the leaves, feel like in my fingers? What does the root system feel like? What about, all these different pieces? Then you might go into, depending on how adventurous, you can go through the other senses. You can try to like taste. Some people will want to lick the bark or not. But or even just put your cheek, use something else to touch the plants. And then start to bring on all those other small senses. And at the end, open your eyes. I guarantee you'll see something different. It won't be the same way that you just saw the plant. And this is the beginning of communication because not everybody hears in words, right? Not everybody has that kind of sense. But we have so many other senses that are bringing in information in ways like the electromagnetic field in the grass, right? You're lying in the grass and there's an electromagnetic field that comes up from the earth. But we can sense that, we can feel it. So when I close my eyes and I bring myself back to my breath, I can now start to let other senses guide and tell me what I'm experiencing.
So I have a mountaintop retreat center. I can assure you I'm going to incorporate this a whole lot more. I can tell you that right now. A whole lot more. No mistakes of the place I chose. And now I'm really going, yes, good
Yeah.
job on that location. Um,
Nice.
okay. As we're coming here to a close, another
Wait,
thing
can
that,
I just say one thing really quick? Because you asked
yes.
me another question that I
Oh,
wanna
yes, yes,
answer
yes.
in a different
Please,
way.
please.
You talked to me about limiting
Oh,
beliefs
limiting beliefs. Yeah.
very, very quickly. So another thing that the plants taught me is to understand that going back to this ecosystem mentality, right? A limiting belief also is not something you're supposed to get rid of. A limiting belief is a bodyguard that you put in place because you didn't feel safe. And we as humans most of the time don't feel safe. So one of the things that the plants helped me understand is that, again, going back to, okay, if everything is useful, then this limiting belief had to have had a use at some point, because if not, why the heck is it here? And so you can start to understand and work with your limiting beliefs in a completely different way, which is not, I need to get rid of this thing. I'm not going to journal myself out of this limiting belief or anything of that. But instead, cozying up to that limiting belief, thinking, hey, wait a minute, you're a part of me. You exist for a reason. Hey, what's actually your function? Like, why are you here? Like, what is it that you're trying to protect me from? And where is it that you become useful and constructive? Because right now you're destructive in my ecosystem. That's the function you're carrying out. So what's your constructive function? And do I still need you? Like, are you in that way kind of useful? So it's a very different way of working with limiting beliefs that sort of flips them to say, oh my goodness, I put in this bodyguard and then I forgot about him. And he just keeps like guarding the door to a whole series of parts of myself.
And I do love that, and I love the concept of, what are you here to protect me from? What are you here to teach me? That it's another version of a messenger, and I think it's beautiful when you say, "Don't be so quick to say that that part of me is wrong, or
Yeah,
that part
absolutely.
of me is problematic. That part of me is," because it's the part that then we dislike, or here's comes our self-loathing, and that we know that doesn't serve anything.
No.
So I do hope that people are really listening to this conversation and everything that you're saying, and it's a beautiful thing that all of these life lessons can be learned through nature because it's how they live, right?
Yeah. And
They
it's
they don't
what
have
we are.
self-loathing, right?
Absolutely. It's the foundation of who we are. We are beings of nature. And I really believe, based on everything that I've worked on, all of the research and everything, that the original trauma that we're suffering from is a separation from nature. The fact, the moment that we started saying that is nature and I am this human, and I forgot that I am actually nature myself, then now all of a sudden, all the benefits that we were just talking about, the fact that I'm a part of an ecosystem, the fact of feeling safe no matter where I am, the fact of being protected in all these different ways, the fact of knowing how to adapt and when to adapt others, all of these skills that every being of nature knows how, and that's how the species continue and how we evolve. Even just believing that I need to evolve over time, all of that got lost in
And
that separation.
this could be a whole nother series of podcasts because when you think about, which I wasn't even thinking about till you just said that, you look at herbology. When you look at every medicine plant, everything that exists
Everything.
on this earth is not by accident, and every
Exactly.
ailment we have, there is every plant known to man that is there as a remedy. That
Yep.
why would we be separate from anything that is helping us to remain whole and healthy and right, sustainable? Is that
Absolutely.
the planet is here to serve us, and we should equally be here to serve the planet. I wholeheartedly agree.
Absolutely, and other species know how to find that instinctively.
That's right.
You know, we see it. We lost that, so we're waiting for somebody to teach it to us
Right. A dog who
rather
has
than
an
being
upset
able to
stomach and starts eating grass. How does it
Exactly!
how does it know
Perfect
to do that?
example.
It knows.
Exactly, and
Right?
that's
I
it,
doubt that
and
its
we had
human
that.
teacher went around and said, "Hey, let me show you how to eat the grass right now. Maybe that'll help." It just
Exactly!
innately knew.
Exactly, and that's exactly what we're talking about. We lost that ability to feel comfortable in our own selves, to experiment, to also know where to find the remedies that we needed. We got to more and more into this fear-based system of running away from our problems, of asking somebody else
Yep.
to teach us. When we start to recognize that we're beings of nature, you'll find that guidance. That doesn't mean that a dog doesn't maybe watch their parent or somebody else trying it, but they try and they just, experiment with these things. We need to get back to them. We need to feel our instinct and we need to recognize that we have a whole series of other skills that we've just lost in that separation.
Oh, I wish you were closer. I would have you at the retreat center teaching in a second. If you're ever
I,
if
I
you're
come
ever
back
in
to the
California, we need
I
to
come back
talk.
to the US twice a year. So
Okay, we're gonna talk. We are gonna
yeah,
talk. I know I have listeners that are saying, "Wow, Michelle, this retreat center is perfect
yeah,
host for you and everything that you are speaking about." And it's an hour away from San Diego, and it's people in a city, or 2 hours from LA, where I know for a fact the root cause of so many people's problems, which is what you just said, is you live in LA.
exactly.
let's
Or
let's
you
just
live in
do
your
some
car,
math.
which happens to be in LA.
Right? It's not wow, okay. So, it's all in line. The next thing I was gonna ask you is exactly what we were talking about, which is that my final wrap-up question, although I have 10,000 more. But I know you help people through this work live into their true nature.
Mhm.
So, if someone feels a bit lost and they've lost direction, or they're in a career they don't like, or they're in a transition and just lost their career, and they're taking, maybe for the first time, a pause to say, why am I here? What
Mhm.
is my purpose in life? What should I be doing? How can this work help you figure out your true nature and who you are as a being, that can maybe make you feel a little more whole and a little less lost?
Yeah, so what I love about working with people, I work with people both in groups and one-on-one, obviously. And what I love is that the first thing to come back to is there is nothing wrong with the way you think, with the ideas that you have, with the fact that you might have 10,000 different ideas in completely different directions, the fact that you process things in your own unique way. All of that is natural. What we have to do is figure out, and what I do with people is help them find the way that their mind works and accepting and understanding. That means that if you need to have paper lists, and over here you have to jump on to play the clarinet, and over here you're running around and you're being a really great project manager. All of that is great. We need to figure out what is the continuous thread through them, what we call your deep pattern in natural settings in biomimicry. It is the pattern that you actually express, no matter whether you're playing the clarinet or you're running a business meeting or whether or not you're trying to figure out to-do list and pay your bills. There is a way that you express yourself. And when we discover that way that you just express yourself, all of these different passions become tools and become ways for you to use and express that self. And then once we create that safe bubble for you to be able to process, deal with, express, and all that, we then find the filter that allows you to take that out to the outside world. So my philosophy is, and one of the best compliments one of my clients told me was like, what I love is that I can tell you anything I'm thinking and you'll help me figure out where that's useful. And I'm like, that's it. That's what it is. I want every single idea that you have, from your strongest limiting belief to the when you got overwhelmed going to the supermarket, to when you were doubting whether or not you even understood what your purpose was. I want all of that to be useful so that you can then discover the way you express yourself what is that then your purpose in this life and how that fits into your soul mission going forward.
I love this. Someone's listening and they're saying, "Okay, I wanna work with her."
Yes.
How does somebody find you? How do they connect with you? What are the ways? And just know if you're walking in the park right now, do not grab your phone and take other notes. This will all be in show notes, so when you get back, you can click on it. But what are all the ways that somebody can find you and connect with you to learn more about what you're doing?
Yeah, the beauty of having an unusual name means that I'm super easy because I'm basically Tigrilla Gardenia, all one word, all connected everywhere. .com, at Facebook, at Instagram, at YouTube, at LinkedIn. All of it is just Tigrilla Gardenia, period, .com and everything else.
Beautiful. That
Yeah.
is gonna be in show notes in case you didn't know how to spell that, that will be there,
Yeah.
so that is absolutely fantastic, and I know people are gonna wanna connect with you. I mean, I do, I can't wait to have you at the retreat center, so that's fantastic, and in closing, I close the show, every time with the same question. Tigria, I don't usually say it like that because I'm talking to you, but, to everybody else, what what is one thing that you absolutely believe to be true?
One thing that I absolutely believe to be true is what I said earlier, that every single thought that comes through your mind, every single quirk, every single way that you create anything and destroy anything can be useful in the right dose, in the right duration, and in the right direction.
Beautiful. Well said. I appreciate you immensely. I knew there was a reason why I was so excited for this conversation. I've been looking forward to this for weeks. So, even more so, I'm going to have you back on the show because I have a million other things that I want to chat with you about. So, thank you for your knowledge and your wisdom and your time and your presence today. I appreciate it immensely. I know my listeners do too. So, truly from the bottom of my heart, thank you for everything you're doing. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you. So much fun. So just love this.
Oh, thank you. And thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Game Changer Podcast.